I am Babushka Ferenczi. I am the creative director of the Jalwa dance company, which is based in Melbourne and mostly focusing on Indian dancing as well as Middle Eastern and circus acts. And I'm a full-time performer and model. Yeah, and I'm Babushka Ferenczi. Absolutely. So originally I'm from France, and that's where I was born and raised. And then when I was about 18 years old, I came to Australia for the first time. I actually was studying to be an English teacher at the time, a high school teacher. So I came to Australia to try to get rid of my accent. And then that's actually when I discovered the Indian culture as well. And then I went back to France for 3 years to finish my studies and to start teaching in high school. And I was teaching for the military as well at the time. But I was missing too much Australia and actually the multiculturalism that was happening here and the performing arts as well. So I came back here and put my high school teaching career on hold and just started performing full time. So actually at that time I was really a belly dancer most of all. I had learned from the Egyptian ladies who were very traditional and very conservative back in France, very technical about the dance form. And then I came to Australia and I was booked for an Indian wedding, which was my very first proper contact with Indian culture. And it was absolutely mind-blowing. It was about 700 people dressed beautifully from head to toes. There's so much color. Obviously jewelry and a lot of beautiful things, but most importantly just the family was just so strong getting all together. So they were obviously two different families, but they looked like they've known each other for so long, and they were putting a big stress on being everyone together and doing all the rituals. Obviously was to bond the two families, but the dance floor and the kind of the after ritual part was probably my favorite because of just every generation, from tiny children to adults to even grandparents, everyone just came on the floor, just having a great time. And then I realized that when certain beats would start, they all started doing the same dance moves as well. And at the beginning I thought, oh, they prepared like a bit of a flash mob or something. And then I realized every song, when the signature move was coming up, they would all dance to it. And yeah, I was just very curious about it and wondering how something like this so beautiful can happen. And then I looked more into the culture, realized that that's pretty much a normal wedding, Indian style. And yeah, that's when I really fell in love with the culture. I think the main thing with Bollywood dancing is that you get to actually tell a story. So you're not just using the body and doing something visual, but there is also a whole storyline in the background. So you can really emote. As opposed to belly dancing, where it's more obviously about the technicality of the body and other styles that I used to do, like hip hop and Latin styles. I think Bollywood and many other Indian styles are really about the emotions and the storytelling and trying to bring these emotions into the audience. So this is probably my favorite part of the dancing. I think the best thing about the Indian culture is their love for family and its strong bond they have, and the way they look after the elders in the family, and how everybody is kind of keeping an eye on the children. So everybody is just looking after everyone and being really bonded, making sure all the rituals and festivals get followed, and they like to keep on their traditions. So they're very modern in certain ways. Obviously they've traveled all around the world and they're setting up really successful businesses, and so very modern things on one side, but they keep remembering where they're coming from and just happily walking ethnic clothing everywhere, and which is not something that, for example, in my country, in France or in Australia or in America, none of us have really kept our identity so much. We all pretty much look the same, even though we're coming from a different continent altogether. So Jalwa, actually the company's name came a bit of a collaboration with one of my dancers at the time, Sahil. So I told him when I open the business, I want a name that's really going to reflect my love for India. So of course it had to be a Hindi word. And then I just gave him a few concepts of what I thought it should portray. And so the words, well, it had to be something very positive and so very colorful. And I was telling him something about charisma. I thought on stage, you know, the main thing I was trying to portray was charisma and the presence and beauty as well and all those sort of things, but mostly the persona. And so he came up with many different words, and then when he said Jalwa, it was just instant. I thought it's short, it's beautiful, I love the writing of it. The main highlights, I think our launch that actually happened at Federation Square during the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne was really striking for us, because I just opened the company and 3 weeks later we were on stage. That was 3 intense weeks of recruiting the dancers, training everyone, making the costumes. I made all the costumes myself, bringing jewels from India. So it was really intense, and just the response that we got after this, we were booked out for every weekend for the next 2 months just after this one performance. So I think that was really a big highlight. So I actually started watching the movies, and obviously those people at the time already were giving me links and things that I should really start watching. Then I really loved, especially movies like Devdas, which is, you know, a big set with just many people on stage, and the dancing being really high part of it, because I was already a dancer for many years before that. So obviously I was appealed by this even more, and Madhuri and all the actually actors that have very strong dancing background was really what was appealing to me. So I started just going from one movie to the next, and all of those ones, especially with the big effort made on the costumes and the dancing part. And then watching a lot of videos, a lot of tutorials, and understanding what the hand gestures were about. And till more recently starting to learn Hindi, and before that I was just basing my choreographing on translations, but it was a little bit tricky because people translate the whole line, not word by word, so it was a little bit tricky for me to understand when to do what hand gesture. That took a lot of time, but now, you know, thanks to Pooja, my amazing teacher, I'm starting to learn Hindi. So I don't actually go to gym. Many people ask me this. My dance training is my only really physical training, which I think is already so intense, and that keeps me fit. The main choreographers who inspired me into the Bollywood dancing would have been Prabhudeva and Farah Khan. And then dancers themselves like Madhuri Dixit, or just absolutely beautiful dancers. So mostly watching their work and how they create a totally different scene every time, depending on the movie, obviously, and what they're trying to show, and the characters that the actors are portraying as well. I think the most unique part of me would be that I have such a big contrast in my life between being on stage and doing a lot of runways and working in fashion. So being very glamorous a lot of times, and then on the opposite side I do a lot of adventurous sports, a lot of extreme sports that are usually actually male dominated, so riding motorbikes, flying paragliders, kite surfing. So this is a whole different style of my life, a different side of my life. I think it's mostly thanks to those breaks that I keep sanity. So even most of the time I have to interact with people so much. Sometimes it can be a little bit draining for someone like me. There's a lot, obviously keeping the energy up all the time. So taking this 1 or 2 days a week to kind of isolate myself in nature, take a lot of time just to replenish and resource. I usually do this thanks to nature, and in Australia I'm really lucky. There's just beautiful places around. So I think this is really what helps me, just being able to shine even more so on stage, and that having these moments just to myself as well. Hi, I'm Babushka Ferenczi and you're watching Good Day India.